Hey guys. Ooh boy, this is a doozy of an episode to talk about. So yeah, right out of the gate, obviously have to talk about the art and animation because to put it simply, this episode felt like the most cinematic experience I've gotten from watching One Piece as a series. I mean, other episodes were great. Like Wano, don't get me wrong, has been very great with the consistent amount of animation it's been pumping out. But this felt like I was legitimately watching a One Piece movie in episode format. And honestly, given how amazing it was, actually kind of leaves me a little tense right now with how this episode ended and with Odin and the Akaze Nine like pretty much facing down that pretty much boiling pot of oil as their execution because it was if it was just a because the thing is if it was just a battle between Odin and because just a fight between Odin and Kaido, that shit was good on its own, but they but again with Odin with the ship with this episode leaving us on the cliffhanger like pretty much before Odin's execution. I It's one of those things where I had previously thought what was going to be impossible even by these elevated standards is now made possible, which is that Toei may potentially make Odin's death even more like painful to watch than what happened in the manga. Again, just a feeling, but the way this episode ended, and if this the way this, but if this episode is any indication, it's a pretty good bet. It's a pretty good bet that once we actually see Odin just like boiling in that pot, it's gonna be visceral to watch. Like it is gonna be painful, and just it's gonna be way more painful than the manga. I almost think like we're pretty much headed for something just as just as nerve wracking. I think to watch, and that's not even and that's not even including like the additive music and voice acting. Like it's yeah. I think the end basically what I'm getting at is I think the anime is going to potentially outdo Odin's death from the manga, frankly. Um, but yeah, just what more can I say? This episode, it was movie quality. Like it was legitimate movie quality. Like I know we tossed that around a lot with One Piece lately, but this pretty much felt like a miniature movie in episode format. Um, in fact, one thing I kind of like about this whole episode is how just through a couple added moments in the fight itself, it kind of gives more of an emphasis on just how evenly matched Kaido and Odin were in terms of strength. So that when we get to the moment of that decrepit old bitch's trickery of transforming into Momonosuke, it does make Odin's defeat weirdly a lot more tragic because it shows that if it wasn't for that single key miscalculation, Odin might have potentially had a chance of succeeding in taking Wano back from Kaido. Not 100% chance. There are still obviously other factors outside of like of that old wench, but but I think there would have been a much greater chance if it wasn't for that single moment where Odin had been forced to let his guard down. And I know I've kind of talked about this before, but one thing that we're getting more emphasis on in this episode is just the level of pure hatred the hatred and the just animosity between the Kazuki clan and the Kurozumi clan. Like the Kurozumi, they have an outright hatred towards Odin and the Kozuki clan that just it's something that's historic that stretches way beyond Odin and Orochi. And yeah, I think if just based off the preview for next episode, I think we are going to actually dive into that history, but I forget how much. Like if it was just a tease or whatnot, but yeah, like I think we're actually going to get a bit of a tease into just what it is about the Kozuki about the Kozuki and Kurozumi hatred that makes it run so deep. I think. Um, Also, I could be bugging a little on this, so you're free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I also like how this episode made better overall use of the battle against Kaido's forces to give the Yakuza 9 somewhat of a more active role in the conflict itself. Again, if memory serves me, they didn't really have much of a role in the final battle in the manga, and that kind of is the same thing here in the anime too. But in contrast to the manga, the anime I feel it felt like the Yakuza 9 did have a much more pronounced effect on the course of the battle in the anime a little bit more, just from the simple touches of seeing them face down king and queen, or just or just facing just Kaido's forces in general. Like it just felt like there was a little bit more of an added impact there, um, and and it really just also emphasizes that neither Oden or the Yakuza were truly ready, or at the very least, they needed to deal with the outside elements before taking on Kaido himself. Because again, this episode shows just how a single miscalculation can turn the tide of battle. And yeah, I absolutely love how before facing execution, pretty much saved Shinobu's life, but when you see Oden in the final moments of the episode just kind of staring down the pot of boiling oil, he just turns to Kaido and Orochi, completely resolved to death, and basically asks for a chance to survive. Like the thing is, I think Oden in this moment understands that he more than likely is not going to survive this. We basically know that. But at the very least, he wanted to make sure the others survived. That is the absolute peak of what makes him such a great leader. He's always not caring. He's always not caring about his life, but more about others. The others he cares about. How is it that in this moment I can save the ones I care about most? How can I save them from facing death? And it is thanks to Oden that they were able to in order to survive and continue the fight in the present. So yeah, it's again, even though I've read all this stuff in the manga, it's really cathartic in order to revisit this in the anime now. The other thing I do find very interesting about this episode, though, is that I didn't really pick up on it when reading the manga, and it's something I didn't really pick up on when reading the manga, is just how much Kaido seems to put emphasis on the strength of his army. Because considering everything going on in the manga now, that does already kind of expose Kaido's biggest miscalculation in the present time, which is Kaido has put so much faith in his army and the power of the smiles to destroy any resistance put up against him. And don't get me wrong, to a certain degree, he does have reason to gloat about that stuff. But in a sense, it's kind of misguided in the sense where he believes them to be just as invincible or as indestructible as he is. When not only is that the furthest thing from the truth, but now that they're actually enhanced with smiles in an attempt to make them more of a threat, he's actually weirdly make them even more vulnerable than they ever were before. And it's an example of Kaido just kind of really overestimating just what kind of power the kind of power his soldiers actually have now. And his at this point, in certain respects, Kaido and his top officers are really the only ones to truly fear at this point. And again, to anime onlys, you'll find out why when we get to the big final battle of this arc. As the events of the final battle that's going to happen between Kaido, the Yakuza 9, the Straw Hats, all that. As that battle plays out, you'll find out why pretty much Kaido's gloating isn't all that necessarily warranted in the current time. There's one little monkey wrench that is kind of thrown itself into Kaido's plans, unfortunately, and it's one that we met at the very beginning of the arc. But I'll say no more. But yeah, guys, with that said, that's all I've got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications. And yeah, guys, Dead Night of Me, signing off. Later, guys.